now. Sandy, hi.
Hi.
It has been a while. 2 weeks, in fact.
It has been. Did you enjoy your time off?
I had just a phenomenal time. It was great.
That's good.
It was good to return to the motherland, England. No, it was great. I had a superb time. I recommend Europe. I don't know if you've been there, but there's something to it.
Not since I went to Scotland and England when I was about 11
Okay.
with my grandfather and my aunt, and that's about as far into Europe as I've been.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite count.
No, I had a great time. It was wonderful. We did the sightseeing things. We had some personal experiences that I thought were just wonderful and transformative, as they say. Like, I believe my wife and I will be talking about this for years and years to come. And also part of my experience was that like seeing being in another culture for 2 weeks straight also gives you a lot of reflections on your own culture. At least it did for me.
Yep. Yeah. I did the mini version of that last week. I drove on Thursday. I wouldn't have been available anyway. I drove to Montreal, had breakfast on Friday with Karen Wong. I don't know if you know who that is, but yeah. And then back home on Saturday so I could hang with my kids for Mother's Day.
Yeah.
It was fun. Didn't realize I actually still had a tiny bit of high school or grade school French embedded in the back of my brain that I could use.
It was still there. Yeah, it never goes away. They say that like the stuff from grade 6 never go, like, hopefully middle school wasn't too bad for you because you'll remember that forever.
Nice.
You know, whatever happened last week, it could be traumatic and you'll forget. But if it happened in grade 6, it's there forever. Okay. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, so I can only stay for about 30 minutes because I got to meet a coworker. But
all right.
I'm free for the moment. So.
Okay, well then let's jump into it. Sandy, we are done the judges portion of judges.
Oh my God. Let me see. Okay, yeah.
And yet the book continues on. I wanted to say that actually, first off, is that like people have complaints about the end of The Lord of the Rings, where they're just like, it's done. Why do we have to still have movie, right? About like the last half an hour of it. And it's just like, yeah, because the movie is actually about Frodo and his experience. So you need to find out how it affected him. But once you find out how it affected him, I don't need to see Frodo as like an whatever, like 50 years later, how he tells the story to his I don't care. Like, then we're done. But I do need to see how this all affected him. And that's kind of this is a well-told story. And so it seems like all the main characters are gone. We're not even going to get, besides Micah, we're not going to get a lot of people's names. But we're entering now the last portion of the story, which is the ending, a well-constructed ending. Sandy, can you read that on screen? Would you be able to read for us?
I can read it on my phone and just pick the phone.
Okay.
There was a man of the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Micah, and he said to his mother, the 1,100 pieces of silver that were taken from you, about which you uttered a curse, and also spoke it in my ears. Behold, the silver is with me. I took it. And his mother said, blessed be my son by the Lord.
Can you pause there? I love this. We've actually found evidence for this. Someone will have their coat stolen, and we have found like bits of pottery where people, or lead curse tablets, where people will say, curse be whoever took my hoodie. Essentially, it's just like something stolen, I'm placing a curse on it, And anyone who owns that thing that was stolen from me, that is now cursed.
Wow.
Yes. And a mother does this, but it turns out who is the person who stole it? It was her own son stole the money.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But then her response is, blessed be my son by Hashem. It's like, wait. Cursed, blessed. There seems to be a bit of a blending of cursing and blessing right from the word go. Yeah.
Wonder how that's going to turn out.
Oh, it's going to turn out terrible. Continue. So she just got 1,100 pieces of silver back. What happens now?
He restored the 1,100 pieces of silver to his mother, and his mother said, I dedicate the silver to the Lord from my hand for my son to make a carved image and a metal image. Now, therefore, I will restore it to you. So when he restored the money to his mother took 200 pieces of silver and gave it to the silversmith, who made it to a carved image and a metal image. And it was in the house of Micah. And the man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and household gods, and ordained one of his sons, who became his priest. In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes.
Jason in the chat wants us to know that the 1,100 silver is the same amount of money that was paid to Delilah to betray Samson. So could these, because a lot of people have tried to figure out how the heck is this at all related to the previous parts of the book. And so this is one of the possibilities. This is one of the how we could possibly connect these ideas to each other. But either way,
that's like to say, like he's the one that paid and then got it back or something.
Oh, I don't know, but it certainly lines it up with a greater suspicion as well of this money. It's this interesting image because some people have actually said that Micah has good Micah has good hospitality. He's a hospitable he's returned this thing that was stolen. So it's a very, very interesting perspective. And then the mom's just like, oh, look, I didn't know that we had this money. So now that we have the money, you know what? We can, we'll spend it on something good and useful. And they do what they think is good. And the thing they think is good is making their own little shrine and their own little set of gods and his own priesthood and all those things. Sandy, your response to this event?
Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm having massively fast finger spelling thrown at me. My question I was going to ask was, so they live in the hill country of Ephraim.
Yep.
But are they of the people who, these are maybe the people that paid Delilah? Or why does he have money? Or did somebody steal it too? I've lost place here.
Yeah,
Who is this guy?
it's a confusing blob where we know that it's occurring in Ephraim, but it doesn't say that it's to an Ephraimite. There's going to be Levites brought in later and Danites. All this stuff is all happening. So it is almost, I'd say, intentionally confusing. But part of the interpretation, again, part of my perspective is that the text wants to be interpreted. Okay. So I don't think these are supposed to be Gentiles, Philistines who paid Delilah or anything. I think there might be a link there that links it with betrayal. But this is the line that helps us understand. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. It wants us to know that this was messed up, that this was not proper, that something bad is happening. Okay, so it summarizes and then says that this is how messed up that time period was. And the man Micah had a shrine, and he made an ephod and household gods, and ordained one of his sons who became his priest. In those days, there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. So it is framing it as knowing something messed up is happening. Michael, do you have any thoughts on this little introduction bit?
I got a little distracted. I was trying to figure out how much money the silver was worth. It's about $12,000
in today's money.
Yeah, in today's money, but which that's a lot of. I mean, it's also quite a heavy amount of metal to just have lost and then found. But man,
it's also so interesting because gold is not used. Bronze is used, and also gold is used, but silver is not used in the temple.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been going. I think you saw my thing. I talked a little bit about it when I did that thing about that hideous strength. But like the story in Acts 19 with the silversmith, and just so I've been digging into that so much with like all sorts of stuff, and like that was the silver coins, there's just a lot there. There's a lot there. With the silver.
In Isaiah, when he's talking about the ridiculousness of idolatry, it says like, you have to cut the wood, you have to carve it, you have to make it. You're actually its father, and then you bow down before it like it made you ridiculous man, right? And these gods had to be maintained, and a silver image, part of the ridiculousness of a silver image is that you would have to polish it on a regular basis. Otherwise, it would, like, your God would tarnish. Like, literally, God has to be maintained. Otherwise, he's not so nice anymore.
And I mean, it's interesting because like in the story in Acts, they're all upset because Paul, like the silversmiths are saying, Paul's saying that our gods made by human hands are not real gods. And, I think it would be easy to take it on a level of like the silversmiths don't want their secret out, but I don't really think that's the thing. I think they know they are the ones making it, but they really believe that they are making gods in a sense, or they're making some vessel that allows for real interaction with real gods through this.
And Cassandra is making a point right now that is where this passage will go, and I think it lines up perfectly with what you're talking about. It says, like when he tells the Levite, you'll be a father and a priest to me, but then the verse ends saying the Levite became like one of his sons. So he appoints a man to be his father. Like, that's the whole thing about a father, is you don't choose your father.
But you know what, though? It does say that about Joseph and Pharaoh. Joseph became like a father to Pharaoh.
Right, that is interesting. Yeah.
But like that's like a good thing. That's not really what happens here. Like if that was what happened or whatever, like that would have been good, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, but it's a strange thing.
Yeah. Have you heard the rabbinic midrashic story about Abraham growing up with statues? Do you know that story?
Yeah, like and he smashed them all or something.
Yeah, it smashes them with a hammer, but there's two parts to it. One is someone wants to offer grain, and he says, "How old are you?" And the man says to Abraham, "Oh, I'm 50." And he's like, "So will a 50-year-old bow down before a one-day-old?" And then the guy leaves kind of depressed, and then he takes the hammer, smashes the idols, leaves it in one of the idols' hands, and says, well, they were arguing over it, and then this guy smashed all the other idols. And
there's that's an interesting thing to say in a Christian frame of mind, in regard to the nativity. But
then at the very end of that story, like he puts the hammer in one of the idol's hands, and his father's like, what happened? He's like, well, they were arguing, and then this one destroyed them all. And Terah says to Abram, that can't happen. They don't even have the breath of life in them. And Abraham says, do your ears not hear the words of your mouth? That's the quote. So it's like,
Yeah.
again, appointing not your father as your father, or the foolishness of making someone less qualified your authority. I think we do that all the time. We have you lead us. You're an idiot. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue on. Michael, can you read this section? Because Sandy is on mute, furiously spelling out words with her hands.
Yes. Now there was a young man of Bethlehem in Judah, of the family of Judah, who was a Levite, and he sojourned there. And the man departed from the town of Bethlehem in Judah to sojourn where he could find a place. And as he journeyed, he came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah. And Micah said to him, where do you come from? And he said to him, I am a Levite of Bethlehem in Judah, and I am going to sojourn where I may find a place. And Micah said to him, stay with me, and be to me a father and a priest, and I will give you 10 pieces of silver a year, and a suit of clothes, and your living. And the Levite went in. And the Levite was content to dwell with the man, and the young man became to him like one of his sons. And Micah ordained the Levite, and the young man became his priest, and was in the house of Micah. Then Micah said, now I know that the Lord will prosper me, because I have a Levite as priest.
It's I hate this guy. do you have any feelings about this, Michael?
Of which guy, Micah or the Levite?
Well, just
priest?
this interaction.
It's very strange how it's like, so how there's like this mishmash of like some knowledge coming from like the Torah, and then some of it completely antithetical to the meaning of like what, because it's like this is exactly like a golden calf thing. Like, we're doing this for
Right.
the Lord, but we're making an image, and then like, oh, this is the right kind of priest because of like his bloodline or whatever like that, rather than whatever, but disregarding all the other context of like where and how you're supposed to worship and stuff like that. So
yes, well, Cassandra said there's something almost incestuous happening, and I think she's right, because like within incest, you have a child that's also a parent, right? Like you blur what the relationships are, and so you have this improper relationship. But then on top of everything else, like Michael, I think you're bang on. You can see this with people all the time. That this is why I titled this video "The Worst Our Best Can Be." Is like when we have bad structures and everything, how we grope even to do what's right can be more wrong than if we just weren't even trying. So like I knew people who, people will pray about, they ask God and thank God for adulterous relationships, right? They thank God and pray to God for certain things. You'll see shrines that people have set up with Buddha, and all, like, not just with Buddha, and there's Jesus next to it. And like we can include Jesus as one of the gods of Hinduism, right? Like, and they do this thing, and it's just like, guys, please no.
it is very strange, because I've gone into many people from that have moved here, their houses from like India, and there's always a shrine, and every once in a while it is a Christian version. It's like it's all Christian imagery and things, but it's set up exactly the same way as it is for like the Hindu shrine or whatever. So it's just, yeah, it is even yeah, it's very interesting. Sometimes I like a Bible on the thing instead of like a statue of Jesus or something. But
Right, and this becomes part of the as well. Can a crucifix be a graven image?
yeah,
Right, and so even some of the disagreements between Catholic and Orthodox was like, guys, I think this might be crossing the line, right? And my friend was, oh, where were they? They were at a Greek Orthodox church that was at a holy pilgrimage site, and a bunch of guys walked in, pulled out their wallets. My friend was like sitting there praying. A bunch of guys walk in, open their wallets, take money, rub it on the altar and like images, put it back in their wallet and left. They didn't say a prayer, they didn't anything. They're rubbing it as though they're going to have now magic money, right? That's now going to prosper and that will give them good luck.
Is it worth more? Did the numbers change?
In the 90s I remember in the early thousands, there would be advertisements for like some of these televangelists would be like, call me and I will send you 3 pennies that have been blessed, or like we're in the hands of Benny Hinn or something, and or whatever. And you put this in your change, and now your change is going to be blessed. Like you're going to receive prosperity by just having this blessed money within there. And it's kind of like, guys, right? And Michael, I wonder your thoughts. I know we have some people who are Orthodox even within the chat, but like I like Orthodox artwork, but some of the reactions to Orthodox artwork give me the ick, and I'm just like, guys, I think this might be crossing a line.
I feel it's like the only thing that really bothers me about it is when they like made the veneration of images like obligatory. Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, because I don't have a problem with the images themselves, and I think there's grace a little bit for some people might put too much stock in the physical icon that's there rather than in what it's meant to portray. But when they make it like an obligatory thing that you must do, like that to me is just I think, well, and I'm a Protestant, and for intentionally, like that to me is to an overreach of ecclesiastical authority or whatever.
Yeah,
so,
that's why you have John Knox's beard.
Yeah,
I think that might be a good Halloween idea for you for next year, or Reformation Day. Sorry. Sandy, do you have any response to that? Thoughts?
No.
I made some running about in Messianic circles, and there's some groups of Christians, like the Jehovah's Witnesses, for instance, are like, you have to say the name and you must use the name Jehovah or it doesn't count. It's like God can't receive the prayers properly if that's the case. And then there's some people who are like, no, you should call him Yeshua. He should not be Jesus. Jesus is like, has Zeus in it and and you'll get people who become obsessed with it, and they're like, no, you have to say this. It has to be this. This has certain principles to it. And at certain points you go, okay, does to what extent can we make holy things unholy things? Can we make a Levite a false priest? Could we make can we make all of these things incorrectly? So he makes an ephod of silver. Now, the ephod in the temple or in the tabernacle was gold, right? Like, what are the elements? What are the things being brought in improperly? And that's the best we can do. And it's going to lead to terrible things. These are very, very big questions.
Now, I know there is silver in the tabernacle, because it says the panels are gold and they go into sockets of silver, which I don't know. I think that might be like
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those heaven and earth kind of things or something.
Yeah.
So I mean, I haven't. I've been doing a lot of research as far as going to like the whole like symbolic differences between gold and silver. Like obviously gold has like a more of an eternal symbolic nature to it.
But it's also more malleable.
In that
it's
it
also
doesn't
more malleable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it seems to me like like silver is not the right, like it's not the right thing you're supposed to hoard. I don't know. Like it's like even when Jesus talks about money in different things, you know, he kind of is like, oh, if you think about silver as like the common currency, it's like have it, use it, you know, spend it
Right.
to make friends.
Use it before it tarnishes, because it does tarnish.
Yeah. And so like the person that's greedy, that's why it's interesting, because that's where it says the love of money is the root of all evil. It's actually the love of silver is the word. And so it's like, you know, because in Revelation he says, you know, like buy gold from me
of pure gold.
So you can be rich. And so it's like gold is, you can store gold. Gold doesn't go bad or whatever, but silver is not meant to be hoarded. And you know, I've been thinking about this like in a big picture term, just like economically speaking, but because, you know, so much problems happen when people like stop the flow of currency, like that causes manipulation of like markets, which one person becomes rich, but that means somebody else is suffering, you know. So I don't know, that's kind of getting in the weeds off of that, but I'll probably I'm going to turn the camera off and I'll be present while I'm driving to my next location. But...
Be in and out. Okay, thank you very, very much. Sandy, I'd like to hear any responses, anything that this might have stirred in you.
I took a minute. I was looking up the gold and silver in the temple. One of the sites, I'm not sure what site it was talking about when a congregation, Beth Zion. It's just one of the congregations. I don't know what background they are, but talking about the different kinds of metals, and they were likening the gold to in one spot to gold reserved for Malay Teshuvah. It's one group of people because they experienced the lows of life with spirituality and still had the strength to go back to the right path. Saying the silver is the symbol of people whose life is easier from the start. You know, they haven't not exposed so much to temptations of sin, or maybe because of their upbringing they were shielded. So it's kind of looking at it made me wonder in terms of when you were talking about how he made they took and had the idols made from the silver, whether this was looking for easier gods. I mean, that's me totally reading into it, but that's what
making easier gods. Oh, I like that. Is a poetic. If you write poetry, please include the line "making for themselves easier gods." Wow. Yeah.
I do write poetry.
Yeah, making for themselves easier gods is a line that you should incorporate. Yes. It's a phenomenal thing. Like one of the people in the corner I had a conversation with was Mud Hut, Emily, and I know multiple people where their re-engagement with the spiritual comes through heavy amounts of psychedelic use, or they deal with the occult and get in contact with demons or something like that. And it's it's so bizarre because it's a horrible part of their story, but it's still part of the story of how God led them back. And like, you know, alcoholics have the story of hitting bottom. So you have the horrible thing that is incorrect and terrible, but it's going to lead to repentance. So this is another thing to keep in mind. Everything we're talking about will lead to repentance. This is part of the story of repentance, but the beginning of the story of repentance is how we make for ourselves easier gods. And that's the thing we need to repent of. That's the beginning of it. Good. So let's jump to the next chapter. And now that I can see you again, now I can ask you to read for us.
Chapter 18. Okay. In those days, there was. Didn't I just read this?
See, that's the thing. Repetition. Just a reminder, this story is messed up.
No, it's really important. In
It's
those
really important.
days, there was no king in Israel. And in those days, the tribe of the people of Dan was seeking for itself an inheritance to dwell in. For until then, no inheritance among the tribes of Israel had fallen to them. So the people of Dan sent 5 able men from the whole number of their tribe, from Zorah and from Eshtaol, to spy out the land and to explore it. And they said to them, "Go explore the land." And they came to the hill country of Ephraim.
Okay, pause. What does this remind you of? Does this remind you of anything? We're going to spy out the land so that we can find our inheritance. It's how Israel comes into the land itself. But the land that they're exploring is also the Israelites. So it's like this is going to become a theme. Israel has become the Philistines. Israel has become Sodom and Gomorrah. Israel has become all these places that they've come to bring judgment upon. Israel is that place itself.
So, side question on Dan, why do they believe they have no inheritance?
Right. So part of the thing about Joshua is it partially ends with it not being completed. And there's also people who have inheritances which are slightly different. So is it Reuben? Reuben is outside of the land. They come to a place and they're like, "Can we have this place?" And Joshua is just like, "Yes, you can have it, but you have to keep with us. Even though you already have a place of rest, you have to keep on it." Mm-hmm. So there's certain amounts of security which they have. Kezi, if you're in the chat, could you correct me if I'm being incorrect about why Dan doesn't fully have an inheritance? They were the weakest tribe and not included in the cloud in the desert. That's interesting. So there's certain images of who's closer fan, if you will. There are fan favorites, and the fan favorites, by the way, are playing a huge role in all this section, because we got references to Judah, we got references to Ephraim. Ephraim and Judah are like competing for who gets the Messiah, and that's why in Judaism there's an Ephraimite Messiah and a Judah Messiah. Like they're going back and forth. So you have your favorites, Levi, favorite, right? And then you have your not so favorites. Benjamin is not so favorite.
And why was Dan not in the cloud? That's weird.
Well, so that this becomes very long bits of conversation. And even you'll remember there's 2 hills before they enter the land where you have a hill for blessing and a hill for curse, right? You can see the favorites being played and in who gets blessing and who gets curse, right? There's a left hand and a right hand shoulder with 6 names each, and there's favorites being played.
Well, and there's a question. Is it simply favorites, or is there some kind of significance to the pattern of how their story of this family grew up and how it played out, even in terms of Joseph ending up in Egypt and who was in what position and place, and like who are each of the people. I always liked reading the names, and
Yeah.
seeing what their names meant. And
Do you know what Dan means?
I should because it's one of my son's middle names.
Judge.
Judge, yeah.
Judge. Daniel is God is my judge.
Yeah.
Right? So so that Dan is on the outside, and we're going to have a story where, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of what is happening here. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Shall we continue on?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I can't remember where I asked you to stop. I'm sorry. So what happened?
So they came
They
to the
explore.
hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah, and lodged there. When they were by the house of Micah, they recognized the voice of the young Levite, and they turned aside.
Wait, of the young Levite? Kezi, is this about you? Sorry. Okay.
You caught that, did you?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
They turned aside and said to him, "Who brought you here? What are you doing in this place? What is your business here?" And he said to them, "This is how Micah dealt with me. He has hired me, and I have become his priest." And they said to him, "Inquire of God, please, that we may know whether the journey on which we are setting out will succeed." And the priest said to them, "Go in peace. The journey on which you go is under the eye of the Lord."
Yeah. So this is one of the things that becomes so strange too. Balaam is he's essentially a diviner. He's not a good dude. He is a bad dude. He is responsible for the Baal of Peor, and is remembered as a very, very bad dude. But he legitimately prophesies.
Yep.
And you get this character as well, where he see like what levels of legitimacy. It's not nothing what his legitimacy is. There's corruption, there's horrible things, but there's still, organizations which are corrupt can still give you some bits of information, right? And Chezi is also saying they say he was a direct descendant of Moses. That will come up where it's brought up as well. But this, when you're living in a world where there's so much corruption, one of the first, you want to start learning about the news. You start watching the news knowing that the news is corrupt, and you're having to filter all these things through because, I want to be informed, and I know that these guys are disinformation or misinformation, but what am I supposed to do? What else am I supposed to do? So,
and thinking of the word corrupt, just because something is corrupt doesn't mean it's not true. Somebody who tells you a lie, in the course of telling you a lie, is in an odd way in reverse telling you a truth.
But so there's a line in the Brothers Karamazov where it's and above all, do not lie, for a lie discredits the self. Is if you discover that someone is a liar, how do you move forward once you know that they're a liar? They tell you a story and you go, oh, maybe. Like I have this one friend, and he might be a ridiculous liar, or he may have lived an incredible life. And I go back and forth. I don't. So
But
it's just
doesn't
like,
that point you
maybe.
in? Doesn't that point you towards how you're going to view the person and the level of trust you're going to give them? Like it actually tells about the person. Everybody reveals their character
Right.
and their life and the things that they are willing to say and call true or false in the way we say it.
Yeah. And hypocrisy within the church has done more to undermine the church than arguments. Like more people left the Catholic Church because of the sex scandals than they did because they were hearing good arguments, right? Like, and it's not even to say whether or not arguments were true or false. It's that the hypocrisy and that we've revealed you to not have moral authority. Yeah. How do you get any of that stuff back? How do you then begin to ask questions?
If that's a real question, the only way I think that you recover anything is through God and repentance, the standard means.
Yeah.
And it has to be obvious that's what's going on, because if you're still always living outside of that, that
Right.
shows through too.
Well, and there's a part of when they leave Egypt, they plunder the Egyptians, but that was supposed to be the material used to make the tabernacle, but instead it's the material used to make the golden calf, right? Is what you are. There is possibly a way of incorporating these untrustworthy resources, but they must be submitted to a higher principle. Yeah. Shall we continue, Sandy?
Sure. I'm just peeking. Secrets of these unholy names. Oh my. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the 5 men departed and came to Laish and saw the people who were there, how they lived in security, after the manner of the Sidonians, quiet and unsuspecting, lacking nothing that is in the earth, and possessing wealth, and how they were far from the Sidonians and had no dealings with anyone. And when they came to their brothers at Zorah and Eshtaol, their brothers said to them, "What do you report?" And they said, "Arise, let us go up against them. For we have seen the land, and behold, it is very good. And will you do nothing? Do not be slow to go, to enter in and possess the land. As soon as you go, you will come to an unsuspecting people. The land is spacious, for God has given it into your hands, a place where there is no lack of anything that is in the earth."
So again, this is almost a retelling of the Joshua conquering narrative. Okay. So I'll read the next section, and then you'll read the section after that, because it's all going to be tied together. So 600 men of the tribe of Dan, armed with weapons of war, set out from Zorah and Eshtaol, and went up and encamped at Kiriath Jearim in Judah. On this account, the place is called Mahanaim Dan to this day. Behold, it is west of Kiriath Jearim. And they passed on from there to the hill country of Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. Will you continue?
Then the 5 men who had gone to scout out the country of Laish said to their brothers, "Do you know that in these houses there are an ephod, household gods, a carved image, and a metal image? Now therefore consider what you will do."
Pause. They know that idolatry is happening. They know that this thing is happening. So I think what you're supposed to think is, when they say consider what you will do, is what the proper thing to do is go and destroy all those things. But that's not what their response is going to be. So
Yeah. I turned aside there and came to the house of the young Levite at the home of Micah and asked him about his welfare. Now the 600 men of the Danites, armed with their weapons of war, stood by the entrance of the gate. And the 5 men who had gone to scout out the land went up and entered and took the carved image, the ephod, the household gods, and the metal image, while the priest stood by the entrance to the gate with the 600 men armed with weapons of war. And when these went into Micah's house and took the carved image, the ephod, and household gods, and metal image, the priest said to them, "What are you doing?" And they said to him, "Keep quiet. Put your hand on your mouth and come with us, and be to us a father and a priest."
Okay, so a reiteration of this notion of being a father and a priest. Can continue until the end of right there.
Is it better for you to be priest to the house of one man, or to be priest to a tribe and clan in Israel? And the priest's heart was glad. He took the ephod, household gods, the carved image, and went along with the people.
Now, I want to pause right there. This is where we are. We're at 21. If you're up at the top, the first line, in those days there was no king in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't say everyone did what was right in their own eyes. It's just repeating the king line.
Yeah.
And so part of what's happening is the people are wanting to unite under a single individual. Okay. And so there's issues with kingship. How do we get brought together? How are we pulled together? And the people who are scattered are looking for these characters, but the problem is that these characters that will gather them together, is this a good way of gathering together, right? So one of the things that happens in any group of people is that narcissists become leaders very quickly. Extroverts become leaders very quickly. Because if you start talking, people are like, oh, he must know what he's talking about. Whether or not he is a good figurehead, whether or not he's a good way of pulling everyone together, look, it's better than all being divided. Even if he's a tyrant or horrible or a degenerate or anything, it's better than us all being separate. It's better than being divided. We need to be together. So that's what we get. Thoughts on that, Sandy? You seem to be nodding. I think you kind of get it.
Well, and the so they still don't have one man leading them.
Mm-hmm.
They have the 5 men leading them.
But
And
they are saying to the Levite,
yes.
Will you be a priest to a whole tribe? Will you do that for us?
So is the fact they ask him also to be father, does that mean they're implying they want him to not only be the priest, but also in a sense they're the clan leader, the king over them?
Right.
That's what they're asking.
Right. Yeah. You're going to become, like, if someone's an elder in a church, that doesn't mean they're older than everyone else. Right. To be father is to be source. Right. Your father is your source. Father is head. Right. Head again is source, like the head of a river, the head of they'll speak in that language. We need leadership. This is a big problem. Like, I'm an extrovert, and it's very, very important for extroverts to know to shut their mouths when they aren't experts in things. I remember when I did some biology, my dad did chemistry and had a degree in chemistry, but as a result, he just thought he understood science in general, and he didn't know anything about biology. And I remember hearing him thinking how he understood some animal worked, and in my head, I'm like, that's not how genetics work. I've done the most basic amount of high school biology, and I know that you're just full of crap. But, in a situation, especially because he's a smart guy in one, he must be a smart in another. You're a Levite. Please just be leader of us. Please. We need a leader. Right. You see this in churches all the time where, like, there were people that wanted to be the heads of personality cults. That's not what a pastor is. right?
Good thing.
Yeah, that doesn't make you a good teacher. Chezi is saying, and the idol is just like the golden calf when there's a vacuum of leadership. Yeah, they don't have a land, they don't have security, they aren't one people group, so there's a vacuum. Do you want idolatry? Because that's how you get idolatry. Yeah. Again, remember everyone, I said that this book is a perfect description of where we're at right now in our culture. We are no longer one thing. If there's a draft, we're 100 years after World War I. If there was a draft, I would be a draft dodger, right? Unlike my great-great-grandfather, I will not fight for this country. We are not tied together enough that we're willing to do such things. And because of that, we are really, really at risk of this power vacuum where we will appoint any idiot to lead us.
On the one hand, I want to say that's sad. On the other hand, I chuckled as well because my dad, who was shipped here in World War II at 15, looked like he was 12 and was doing everything he could to try to get into the army.
Right. I swear I'm 15. I swear.
17. You had to be 17.
Sorry. I swear.
Yeah. I think he had one year in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And didn't even get off continent.
Okay, continue for us, Sandy. Verse 21.
So they turned and departed, putting the little ones and the livestock and the goods in front of them. When they had gone a distance from the home of Micah, the men who were in the houses near Micah's house were called out. And they overtook the people of Dan, and they shouted to the people of Dan, who turned around and said to Micah, "What is the matter with you that you come with such a company?" And he said, You take my gods that I made and the priest and go away. What have I left? How do you ask me, what is the matter with you? And the people of Dan said to him, "Do not let your voice be heard among us, lest angry fellows fall upon you, and you lose your life and the lives of your household." Then the people of Dan went their way. And when Micah saw they were too strong for him, he turned and went back to his house.
It's interesting. This is the second time where someone is told to shut up.
Well,
earlier it was put your hand on your mouth. Don't say a word.
Yeah, that. And whose little ones and livestock have they got running in front of them? I'm sure they didn't bring them with them. And what is the complaint he raises? Hey, you took my gods. I want them back.
Yeah.
Are those his people? Is that his household? Who are they?
Yeah. Another thing to realize is remember that the word na'ar, the terms for servant and for maid are the same words for children, right? That is, by the way, I think I said this before. That is why a boy is an insult to Black people, because that used to be a term for slaves. You call them boy, child, right? Become a father to us, become our master, is to say become our master. To turn someone into a child is the same as turning them into a slave. You'll do what I want. Boy, na'ar, child. But yeah, there's this. So Sandy, you are noticing the pillaging, the bad stuff, and to what extent this is to their own people they're doing it. So there's Cassandra used the term incest, which is also related to cannibalism, right? You're, instead of eating outside of yourself, you're eating your own. All that stuff is all happening. And the story begins with a curse, and then the curse becomes a blessing, and now people are being told to shut up. Shut up. No criticism. Don't talk to me about this. Isn't this better? Wouldn't you rather be alive? Right? So don't give me your valid criticism. shut up or you're dead.
Yep.
Wonderful. Let's finish the chapter.
But the people of Dan took what Micah had made and the priest who belonged to him, and they came to Laish, to a people quiet and unsuspecting, and struck them with the edge of the sword, and burned the city with fire. And there was no deliverer, because it was far from Sidon, and they had no dealings with anyone. It was in the valley that belongs to Beth Rehob that they built. Then they built the city and lived in it, and they named the city Dan, after the name of Dan, their ancestor, who was born to Israel. But the name of the city was Laish at first, and the people of Dan set up the carved image for themselves. And Jonathan, the son of Gershom, son of Moses, and his sons were priests to the tribe of the Danites until the day of the captivity of the land. They set up Micah's carved image that he made, as long as the house of God was at Shiloh.
Okay. So look, this is the bit that I was talking that Kezi made reference to, that Jonathan, the son of Gershom, son of Moshe, and his sons were priests to the tribe of the Danites, right? So it implies that this guy, this piece of crap who becomes this priest, is in fact a descendant of Moses, a direct descendant of Moses. And in some traditions, Micah, it actually was alive in Egypt. Like there's these weird random traditions related to this. But either way, you get this idea that there's some element of Egypt, some element of the previous ways that have been brought in, and persist and have to be destroyed. Yeah. Hezi is saying this. Yep, Moses saved him. There's an incident where Hezi, I don't know if I'm correct on this. There's like a bunch of bricks fall on him, and Moses pulls him out of like the rubble, which I don't think we have to take literally, but there is an essence in which something is pulled from the rubble of Egypt that's brought into that's brought here. Something evil is brought out of the rubble. Kezi, just so you know, my bias is that he's a bad dude. It says, and he throws the name Joseph in fire when they are making the idol, and bull appears. Okay, so just so people know what he's talking about. So Joseph is buried in Egypt, right? And there's a tradition that he's in some water, and a piece, the word bull on a piece of wood is thrown into that water, and that's how that's how Joseph's coffin comes up. Because it says that they take the body, this isn't scripture, that they take the body of Joseph and bring it into the land of Egypt. And one of the rabbinic traditions is when they're making the golden calf, they have to make a fire. And so this little, you could say, enchanted piece of wood is burnt in order to make the golden calf. This is where, depending on how you understand it, in some understandings, they just throw the gold in and basically it becomes a calf. That there's no carving of it. I don't take that perspective. I think that they are making the thing. But I see what they're saying. There's something of Egypt that has made its way all the way to this place. Something from the rubble of Egypt. And one of the things that we've come to learn is that the Philistines were to some extent a vassal state of Egypt. So it's like the Philistines, the enemy of Israel, is itself Egypt. It used to be Egypt and now it's the Philistines. It's by it being the Philistines, it's like it's saying it's still Egypt. Egypt is the like eternal enemy. I vomited a bunch of things. I'm sorry. That was too much of a fire hose of information.
No, I was just reflecting on something. So
Okay.
it just kind of makes interesting pathways in my mind through some current events.
Yeah.
So
Hezi is also saying that Micah, being close to Moisha, has this special name. Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is the setup. This is the beginning of the second of like the end of Judges.
So what is the significance of Laish? Because they've mentioned it several times that the city became Dan's, was called Dan.
Yeah.
But it was Laish at first. Sorry.
Nope, no. That's good. That's good.
Is there what is the significance to that?
Well, and there definitely is. They are developing a inheritance, right? So the naming of Dan is very important for that reasons. Hezi, do you know Laish means lion?
Lioness.
Lioness. Yeah, I was gonna say because I was pretty sure. Anyway, lioness. Lioness related to Judah, huh? Because again, we're having this play of Judah and Ephraim. Ephraim is the bull.
Huh. But it says it's also in the territory that was given to Manasseh, which is one of Joseph's sons. So,
right.
Established any cities there? Okay. Well, I mean.
Yeah, the first time that it appears, Laish, the first time mentioned in Scripture is this story.
Okay.
But then afterwards, it's related to 1 Samuel. Saul had given Micah Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Palti, the son of Laish, no, that's a name. Son of Laish. This is the only time it appears. As a place, it's the only time it appears. I don't know. So I'm going to say that it is related to the importance of the naming, of calling it Dan, of it becoming the inheritance. And it is interesting too that the way that it ends is to let us know that this is going to continue on for quite some time. It's going to continue on until the reign of David, because it's in the middle of which again they're looking for a figurehead, right?
Yeah.
It says carved image that he made as long as the house of God was at Shiloh. Right, there becomes this transition in David and all the way through Shlomo, where the ark is brought into the house of the Lord and all this other stuff, and that is in and of itself the gathering of the people back together.
Well, okay. I just like weird questions. So at this point, in essence, they've set up, and you've alluded to this, but they've set up the house of God in the place that was allotted to one of the sons of Joseph. And they're running it more with the image, like you're talking about, coming out of Egypt. So they're recreating Egypt in a sense there, but calling it the house of God. And when David then it shifts back to
but then it shifts back again. So David and Shlomo and Solomon, they begin to bring everyone back together, but when Solomon's son when everything begins to fall apart, then how they get the group to separate, there becomes a king of the north and a king of the south.
Yeah.
Right. And so the improper king thinks to himself, wait. All of my people are going to make a pilgrimage to the house of God. And how do I make it? How do I make it so that they don't pilgrimage to this place? I know I will make golden calves for them to celebrate here. I will again make false images, a false priesthood, all of that stuff to stop them from going up to Jerusalem. Isn't it? Sorry, Pezzy, isn't it Rehoboam? I'm talking about Rehoboam, not Jeroboam, where there's the split. This is neither here nor there. But yeah, so when there is a house of God and a proper king, they're brought back together, proper priesthood, all that stuff. But then it disintegrates and immediately it goes again to Egypt, which is also the warning, guys. If we keep on messing up, if we keep on forsaking the Torah, then we're going to be brought back to Egypt. That's part of the exile.
So is this still playing out today?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
Like, even talking about naming and how things are named. And whether you want the name that you're given or you don't, or you want a different name, things like that.
We're in a situation right now where a ton of people are renaming themselves. I will name myself. No one shall tell me who I am. Which, by the way, before it became popular, was already very common among criminals or runaways. So I worked with a ton of people on the street. I was a lay pastor at a homeless shelter in Toronto and a bunch of other, like it was a church and it was a bunch of things. And when people died, you sometimes found out what their real names were because they had caseworkers that were like, oh, this person's name was actually this. Their name was actually that, right? Knew too many people named Jack Daniels. Everyone from Quebec was named Frenchie, right? Like it was just...
Yeah.
But you get this. Now everyone's naming themselves. And it's an important thing to know that there was that is something that especially happens as we disintegrate. I pick my father, I appoint him.
I love coming on your Bible stream. It destroys my life in so many ways.
Oh, good. I don't know what I just did.
Oh, just so when I was in my teens and I was trying to learn the whole honor your father and your mother, and I was having issues with that, I said to God, I'll do that, but I still need to be parented. So can you be my father? So I was listening to that earlier and went through name change.
Right. And one of the things that they note is all these people, this disintegration, it comes from a lack of father. Right? The people who are in gangs, it's they need a father, and the gang leader becomes the father. That's the prison population more than white and black. What it has in common is all of those people did not have a father, right? Mm-hmm. And there's all this stuff happening all at the same time too, where it's like the tradition of taking someone's name when you get married. And to what extent we do and don't follow that practice anymore. So to what extent do we in any way submit to naming?
And whether you, and what it means to anybody when you do that. Like, people asked when I got divorced whether I was going back to my maiden name. And when And even when I married, that was kind of still messed up and somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but not enough teasing to really be taken that way. Was the whole, like, well, there's real Bassies and Bassie wannabes. And so you're in a designated place, and like I listen to a lot of things and I'm thinking, yeah, there's an awful lot to stuff that we get told and shown in scripture that I don't know that we really think about, but then I kind of do.
Well, and like on that topic, I dated this girl. We dated off and on for a while, and she married someone, and I became friends again with her and her husband. And it was like our relationship was very intense. And so there was like these questions about whether or not we could become friends and all this stuff. And one of the things that I did when before we dated, when she was just my friend, I used to call her by her last name all the time. And one of the things that I did when we became friends again after she got married is I would refer to her by her new last name, by her husband's last name. So that was almost my way of continuously acknowledging, like saying to her, I acknowledge the difference in what our relationship is. I am respecting all of those boundaries, and I can show that I'm doing that just by acknowledging your new name. That's what I'm, yeah. And that you could see someone undermining their belief in something by refusing to use the new name. Right? Where, I mean, even Kezi, I because he's in the stream, the name Palestine was created by the Romans as a way of saying we're not going to call it Judea anymore, because it used to be Judea, which is the land of the Jews, and we don't call it Judea anymore. It is now the land of the Philistines, right? And so even when you hear people talk on the modern politics things, listen to what name they call a place, and already we know what their politics are. Winston Churchill called it Constantinople. He had maps that said Constantinople. He would not call it Istanbul. Right? Like that's a way of thinking about things. You are making a statement by what name you accept and do not accept. Sandy, what a great conversation we had. Look, I missed having these conversations while I was in England, the land of the Angles. So many angles there. Yeah. But so I'm going to give you a final thing, and then I'll close up.
Yep.
Did I stir anything within you? Rage, perhaps?
Sorry, no rage.
Okay.
No, I just really liked reading through this.
Yeah. Just because it's where we left, it may not necessarily fully be from this passage of scripture in particular. There's an importance in the book of Revelation where we are told we will be given a new name. I'm going to give you a new name, right? And actually, Old Testament as well, right? I will call not my people, my people. There's going to be a name change. Yeah.
There again, I will point out what you said to me earlier about people who refuse a name that is given to them and people who are obstinately choosing their own name. So we should all be very careful.
Man, yeah, and I had an old roommate who wanted to change her name, and I didn't like the fact that she was picking her own, because part of what a name is it's a label, right? And it feels kind of weird to choose your own label, right? Like I've known people who come up with their own nicknames, and it's like, you don't get to pick your own nickname. I get to pick your pet name. I get to pick your nickname. You don't get to pick your reputation, right?
Yep. Well, I know what name my mom was going to give me when I changed my name.
Can I ask what it would be? I'm so curious now.
No, I mentioned it once before, I think. Because Sandy was a nickname from when I was little, when I turned it into a legal name, she said, instead of just going with Sandy or Sandra, she said, why don't you make it Cassandra? Or then you can keep the same initial I had with the original given name.
Oh yeah, you mentioned some of this before.
That. And Cassandra, the meaning or part of the meaning is light, which is interesting.
And you pick that name because you just like beaches so much.
I downplayed it to Sandra because I was intimidated by taking on a new name to begin with. And I don't know, it's silly. There's no reason I couldn't have had that name. Yeah, and the original name, so that would have been, so the name choices would have been keep the original, which whose meaning was pure, and or go with light or helper of mankind, which Sandra kind of falls into. So those are my naming options.
Good on you. Cassandra in the chat says, my mom named me Cassandra because that is what she named her doll. Oh, that's funny.
There are worse things, Cassandra. My mother got her name because of a roll of toilet paper.
Well, yeah, I'll end on this. My middle name is Jonathan. Well, sorry, I got two bits. So my middle name is Jonathan, and my parents didn't know that David and Jonathan were best friends. Okay. So when I asked them why they named me that, they said they just liked the name. And so I read in the Bible that David and Jonathan were so close that they were like one man. And I am like one man. It's exactly what I'm like. What's Dave like? He's like one man.
Yeah. Good that than being scattered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's interesting too when people, Cassandra is also talking about being referred to by middle names, and like her husband calling her by her middle name. I've reorganized my wife's middle names. My wife is Catherine Joy, Catherine Irene Joy. Okay. But I now say it Kath Irene Joy Irene. I'll call her, instead of Catherine, everyone calls her Katie, but I'll call her Kath Irene Joy Irene just because I like the flow of it, even though now I'm mixing stuff up. Yeah. I'm not going to get into other stuff. But if you read the Brothers Karamazov, at the very beginning, it's like, okay, everyone, because there's a character named Dmitri, but he also goes by Mitri, but also by Metr, by like, right? Like, I have a friend named Kim, and I've lengthened it to Kimothy as though Kim were short the way Tim was short, right? Like, I have a friend who I call Gramuel, and it's just Graham, but why isn't Graham short for just like Sam is short for? Yeah. Anyway, okay. This
Do you have children? Do I
not
need
yet.
to feel sorry for anybody yet?
You can feel sorry for my pets, who themselves have an infinite number of names.
Oh, you've been practicing naming. Okay.
Well, and the first time, like sometimes I do voices and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes I do a Maltese accent because that is where my father is from, right? Tony, why didn't you not put the bottles in the attic? That's a Maltese accent. And I sometimes, as a result, will call my wife. She's not a Katerina. That's a different name. And I'll be like, Katerina. And she'll just be like, you can't call me that. That's a different name. Yeah, too many names. Okay.
That's fine.
We have disintegrated much like the people of Israel and need a strong man to unite us. So I think instead we'll just be united by ending this.
What does Cassandra's last question mean?
Yeah, can you give yourself a nickname? Can you pick your own?
Tag. Gotcha.
Yeah. Pablo Picasso. Have you seen his real name?
No. Is it bad?
No, it's not bad. His name is Pablo. Oh, where is it? Come on, where's your full name? Full name. Pablo Diego Jose Francisco de Paula Juan Nepomuceno Maria de los Remedios Cipriano de la Santísima Trinidad Ruiz y Picasso. How's that? How's that for a name? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, you can see why he'd just be like Pablo, or yeah, which is none of his name. Or no, I guess it kind of.
It's the beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't worry about
For everybody in the family, they were obligated to.
Yeah, Cassandra says the unbreakable password. That's right. That's a great. I mean, he needs a couple of symbols in there, maybe a number or two.
Wow.
Okay, you know what? This has fallen apart, much like the ending of Judges. So we're going to cut it here. Sandy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cassandra, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this and participating. See you next week, where someone is going to be dismembered. Okay.
This week we disintegrate.
Yes.
Next week we dismember.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Rename, disintegrate, dismember, burn the ashes. Thanks for the study. Goodbye, everyone.
Can't wait.